Welcome to Film Strip. These podcasts are spoiler-filled as we discuss the plots, characters, and themes of the films in review. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504(c)(2), Title 17.
Welcome to Film Strip. I'm Ron.
I'm Lindsay.
I'm Jay.
And this is our review of Silent Night, Deadly Night 5, The Toy Maker, starring Mickey Rooney, William Thorne, Jane Higginson, Tracy Frame, Brian Bremer, and Clint Howard. Directed by Martin Kitrosser, released in 1991 on an estimated budget of $250,000. No one knows how much it made because it went straight to video, and Brian Houston was involved, so Charles Band probably got a cut. This is the fifth entry in the increasingly unrelated Silent Night, Deadly Night series. And as such, Go ahead.
I got questions. Okay, like, why are we doing, of all the Silent Night, Deadly Night movies we could do, we're going to skip Garbage Day and do this one? Like, Ron, do explain yourself. Like, this is your idea, so. And it's January, by the way, so.
It's January. We've missed December completely. One of the reasons why I ended up watching this one because on New Year's Eve, Jay and I have a tradition of separately watching New Year's Evil. We've talked about it in our New Year's Evil episode, available in the archives. But this year, I go to Amazon and I'm like, great, it's time. New Year's Evil. Nothing shows up except that bullshit Gary Marshall New Year's movie. It's like, no, I'm not watching that. New Year's Evil. So I yell at Alexa for a while. Then I give up and go search New Year's Evil. And it is not available for streaming anywhere. Shock and horror. Like, I could buy it for like $15, and I'm not going to pay $15 for this movie. As much as
I bought it when it was $7.99. That's what you should have done, man.
Yeah, I know, right? And yet I didn't, so it's my failing. So I was like, well, I can't just not watch a piece of crap. I got to watch something crazy. I got to watch something that will fit. And I was still in the Christmas spirit, and honestly, I'm still in the Christmas spirit now. So I was like, let's try Silent Night, Deadly Night 5. And I watch it, and I text Jay, and I'm like, this movie is insane. You got to watch this.
Yeah, which I've seen it. I will cop to. I've seen all of the Silent Night, Deadly Night movies before. I've seen the first two a few times a piece. I've seen the third and fourth and fifth one. I did a marathon one year. I think it was when the new rebootish one came out, whether that was 2012, 2013, whatever that was. And so I watched them all in succession. And not that it helped, because nothing to do with each other most of the time and nothing to do with that reboot. But I've seen all these before, but I barely remember this one, other than I remember Mickey Rooney was in it, and I distinctly remember like he had like a real problem with Silent Night, Deadly Night when it came out, and now he's in one. So apparently, like some of that $250,000 was enough. That's all I need to know.
and given the state of Mickey Rooney's career at this point, it probably wasn't much of it.
Yeah, really. So now, Lindsay, this is new for you, right? Like all of this.
Brand new. I have never seen this is the first and only Silent Night, Deadly Night film that I have ever watched, and I watched it, finished it about 3 hours ago. So it's super fresh in my mind.
Yeah, like I said, I've only seen this one once before. I do remember it though, and we'll talk about why in a bit, because there's some memorable pieces to it outside of Mickey Rooney's crazy stuff. But yeah, I've seen this one before. When you texted me that, I was like, oh yeah, that movie's Bug Nuts, or whatever. And we were going back and forth, and you're like, hey, we should just do that. And I was like, okay. And I'm thinking like next year, December. And I was like, no, now. So Lindsay and I come off of doing like, the reboot of West Side Story, this, pretentious movie as it was, but it's got this great point, and then we're going to do this. And I'm like, well, it wouldn't be Film Strip if we didn't whiplash you to death with our episode to episode connections here. So
yeah, as we were talking with Lindsay off mic, basically Film Strip is us doing whatever we want. And various co-hosts and hosts just throw things out, and whatever we want to do, we end up doing. And this was my first time watching this. So I was like, this is too crazy not for us to jump on it. And when you were like, yeah, I told Lindsay to watch it, I was like, all right, well, that just cements it. We're going to sit down and do this movie.
I mean, I knew I had seen it. You hadn't seen it, Ron, but I knew you were at least familiar with the series and were clearly having a reaction to it. And I was like, I got to get Lindsay's thought on this because, one, I know you love horror movies, Lindsay. You grew up with them like we did at different times. And so I thought, well, this might be worth it. And I did ask you, I was like, okay, so what did your Brian think of this? And his response to that was golden, I thought.
Yeah, so I invited my Brian to watch this with me. He's usually a really good sport about watching all the films that I watch for this podcast. And he read the synopsis of it and just went, pass. So I watched it. I watched it solo, which was fine with me. And it was worth the watch, I'd say. I mean, I wasn't I had set the bar pretty low, to be fair, but yeah. I wasn't upset with the result, I guess.
Yeah, I mean the bar is like dinosaur bones at this point. Like it's when you get to the end of this series, the most low rent of horror series as it is. When you get to this one, it's like, yeah, you can have no expectations other than could you be entertained. And I'll say this before I say anything else, and I've got plenty of nits to pick in this movie, and I'm sure you two do as well, is that I will say one thing, it is not boring. Like it definitely gets your attention sometimes in shocking ways. And I think that's the whole point of this series, though. Like, not to review all the Silent Night, Deadly Night movies, and I promise we won't do all of them. We may do that garbage day one someday because I got words for that. But, this one definitely gets your attention. But this whole series is built to be like evocative and shocking. And I mean, it's built on the idea of murder at Christmas, I mean, of course, right? I mean, which that's not novel because Black Christmas has been around. There's been a lot of horror Christmas movies, but this one has always taken it to like just a different level. I mean, there's one where it's like a sorority of witches and they're worshiping like an evil glowworm. And there's one where it's like a mental patient who drives a lawnmower over people, and Robert Culp's a cop in one. I mean, it's this series is insane, but it's always doing something to just make you go, I can't believe they did that. And then you just can't turn away from it. It's like a car wreck.
So what Jay is saying in a roundabout way is we'll end up covering all these movies because they all sound crazy.
I mean, how we've missed them for 11 years, it kind of blows my mind because I thought, I'm like, it's rare that I'm stumped by our own catalog because generally it's the one thing I can remember for some reason is what we've done, what we haven't done without looking. But I thought, man, didn't we do one of those once upon a time? But we didn't. I had to go back and look. I said, man, I don't know how we avoided all those.
Well, you thought we did one because I've pitched Silent Night, Deadly Night every time we've had Tis the Podcast on.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. And someday we will drag poor Julia through that. Anthony and Tom are kind of ancillary. I just got to have Julia do that. But yeah, that's another.
We have to make it up to her for all the terrible things we put her through in other movies.
Right. Well, I don't know that would make it up to her. But we'll see. We drug poor Lindsay through this one, so we'll see what that looks like. But Ron, I think it's time for you to, and I use this term very loosely, give us the plot summary, if you would, for Silent Night, Deadly Night 5, The Toy Maker, so we can get into dissecting it as we are wont to do here on Filmstrip.
It's an undetermined amount of nights before Christmas, and not a creature is stirring in Derek's household, except for Derek, who's watching his mother and stepfather have gross sex prior to wandering downstairs after hearing a doorbell. Waiting on the steps is a big, beautifully wrapped toy marked Do Not Open Till Christmas on the label. Derek's gross stepfather, Todd or Rick or something, surprises him and yells at him before sending him back to bed, only to find himself strangled and killed by a crazy-looking Santa Claus toy. Derek is traumatized, obviously, because his dad wore a pinky ring and had a terrible receding hairline. And 2 weeks later, his grieving mother is sick of his shit enough to yell at him over breakfast and try to break him out of his funk by taking him to local toy maker Pedo's store, where Derek is traumatized again by Pedo's masquerading creep-ass son, Pino. Meanwhile, skulking around the periphery is Ricky lookalike Noah, who wears an old army jacket and has an unhealthy obsession with toys, judging by the amount he's dropping at Pino and Pedo's place. When Sarah takes Derek to see Santa in an attempt to spring him out of his funk, we get a Clint Howard cameo, and the Santa is none other than creepy skulking Noah, who seems to be as unhealthily obsessed with Sarah and her son as he is with toys. But not as unhealthily obsessed as Pino, who breaks into the family home and puts his boots on Derek's bed when he's not fondling Sarah's lacy underwear. Sarah confronts Pedo after chasing Pino out of the house, who flies into a drunken rage and seems to kill Pino after Sarah leaves. Meanwhile, Noah goes to Sarah's office, and after surprising her and making her run screaming through a parking garage for some reason, they finally reconnect. Noah is Sarah's lost love and Derek's father, and 2 weeks after her husband died, she's banging Derek in a parking lot while Derek's babysitter is having gross sex with her boyfriend. And this is exceptionally gross sex. It makes the sex from the beginning of the movie look like Monsters Ball. A bunch of Pedo's toys come to life and brutally kill the babysitter's boyfriend and traumatize the babysitter before kidnapping Derek. Noah and Sarah arrive at the house, only for Sarah to steal Noah's car and take off to get her son back. Sarah is confronted by a mystery Santa Claus, who turns out to be Pino, who then takes off his clothing and face and reveals that he's actually a robot. Turns out Pedo has been breaking him and rebuilding him for years, and Pino finally got sick of it, killing the old man. Now he wants Sarah to be his mommy, or he wants to have sex with her, or both, and the dickless robot tries to molest Sarah while she screams bloody murder.
Sarah like one of those characters in the Primus videos or the Burger King King.
Yes, he looks like a combination of the Burger King King and if the people from the Black Hole Sun video didn't have genitals.
There we go.
Sarah stabs Pino in the head with a screwdriver, causing him to malfunction even more. He then tries to kill Derek, who was trapped in a hanging bag, only to be interrupted by Noah. A terrible fight ensues until Sarah grabs an axe and cuts Pino in half. Pino cries for his father pathetically before Sarah steps on his head, killing him. The new family embraces, but one of Pedo's toys begins to spark ominously as credits roll. The end? Turns out it was, because they didn't make a sixth one.
So if we haven't already made it clear here, this is definitely one that earns its E-tag on iTunes today. What in the actual fuck is all of that about? Because I do not even know how that gets strung together. I get what they're doing. It's let's do horrific Pinocchio story, right? Probably because it's like Domain or something they can do. But there's so much going on in this that is beyond the pale.
I won't lie, I didn't realize that their names were Pino and Pedo until halfway through the movie the first time I watched it. Because I kept just being like, oh, that's just Mickey Rooney. And oh, that's just creepy fake new wave kid.
And his name isn't just Pedo, it's Joe Pedo.
Right.
Joe Pedo.
I mean,
as opposed to
there's subtext and then there's text.
As opposed to Joe Pedo, who's a completely different guy.
The Pinocchio references in this movie were so tongue-in-cheek. I mean, you have the babysitter reading Derek Pinocchio toward the end of the movie, right before their gross sex scene. There are just a ton of references throughout the movie, and we could get into this later, but maybe now's the time to do it. If they're doing just a really fucked up Pinocchio, they could have done so much more with it. And that's my issue. Where's Jiminy Cricket? Where are the donkeys? Where?
I want to know the same thing. I'm like,
I mean, the donkeys are probably that weird kid friend and boyfriend, because they're both kind of jackasses.
The rocket skate friend. Yeah. That has the whole Pet Cemetery moment.
But then it got me thinking, I really want to see now, and I didn't even know I needed this in my life, is a really dark Pinocchio.
Oh, there is one. Yeah, you go search a good horror bin. Go through Shudder or something like that. There's an evil Pinocchio movie. I remember it specifically. I think it's even called Pinocchio, but it's sinister looking. Actually, was it a good evil Pinocchio movie? It's called Dead Silence. And James Wan did it, and everybody forgot about it. But it's more than Pinocchio too. It's sort of like precursor to Annabelle. But
spoilers for upcoming episodes
Lindsey,
of Film Strip.
I mean, possibly, right? Because there's so many of them. Though I don't know, if people have been listening to the show long enough, like if you listen way back in the archives, you hear me reference stuff that we might do that we never do. So, we just, who knows? Because again, this show is kind of like
big dreams.
The structure of this show is like Seinfeld. It's just whatever, so it's whatever hits us that day. We got it. There's so much to get into, but I just got to ask a question. Is this the grossest, sexiest opening to a Christmas horror movie ever? And that's saying something, because there have been quite a few of those out there, including this own series.
I think for my money, the grossest one is still probably the first one, which, if I remember correctly, opens with, it could be this one or it could be Christmas Evil. But there's one of them that opens up with this family getting attacked by a guy dressed like Santa Claus, who then proceeds to rape the mother in the middle of the street while the children watch. And
that is the original Silent Night Deadly Night.
The original Silent Night Deadly Night, yeah.
Oh,
but Christmas Evil is also no slouch in terms of the grotesquerie factor.
This is after, by the way, Lindsey, the children have been taken to see their grandfather in like the assisted living home, and he grabs one of them to go like, Santa will kill all the bad boys and girls for being naughty. It's that guy. So it's in that inflection exactly. So I mean, I remembered that there was. I think I remembered the babysitter and her boyfriend had like a scene that involved like doll hands and tidy whities and like demonic toys, Puppet Master, coming to life.
And like, how come tidy whities always look anything but white in sex scenes like that?
Right.
Like they just look like they have not been washed for 2 weeks.
I mean, truthfully, the guy probably brought his own wardrobe to the set. Like, I don't imagine they had a costume.
That's fair.
But there's that. But this one opens with like, all I could think of is that scene in Forrest Gump when the principal comes out and says, your mama sure does love your education. And Forrest goes, at him, because that's the noise coming out of this room. This poor kid is listening to mom get her Christmas fuck on in the room. You say it's an undisclosed time before Christmas. I think it's Christmas Eve, man.
No, because 2 weeks later, 2 weeks later, they've still got unopened Christmas presents.
Yeah, it's like 2.5 weeks before Christmas Eve. Because then her neighbor says tomorrow's Christmas Eve. It's only going to get better.
Maybe it was Hanukkah then. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I mean,
it was Black Friday post big turkey dinner.
Oh, yeah,
it was all that you have the Visa card. So, but I don't know. Like, Gross Dad Todd. I think that's a great name for him. I don't know what his name is. We're just gonna call him that.
Dad Todd.
That guy is. You can just smell like the Coors Banquet coming off of him through the screen, right?
Coors Banquet and like whatever the equivalent of Axe body spray was.
High Karate, Old Spice.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That would probably be the Old Spice. Definitely Old Spice.
And Winston Select Lights. It probably is brand.
That's a very specific. Yeah, but he's definitely Winston. He's not Cools. He's not cool enough for Cools. No. He's not manly enough for Marlboros.
Yeah.
No. It could be
Winston
Golds. That
Winston
would be
Golds or Vantage 100s.
Yeah, the butthole cigarette. Yeah, that's that.
Yeah.
So
cigarette.
Though I'm surprised Sarah didn't like have those capris going, because it was the time. She had enough Aquanet going there. She might have lit her hair up doing that. But the opening of this though is that. I mean, it does what Silent Night, Deadly Night movies are supposed to do. It's evocative. It's supposed to make you go, and then you get the evil toy thing. And I got to say, like, one of my favorite things about evil Christmas movies is when they do like Christmas music, like Nutcracker Suite, but they just twist it just a little bit where it's like ultra sinister. It's like they turn the sinister knob on the mix board on the 808, and it's just da 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 da, knife in your throat coming down. I mean that's what I had in my head watching this. So I love it when we do evil Christmas music in these movies, and
it abruptly hits like minor key. Well, they do that in the opening kill, right? Because the Santa Claus toy is all happy and smiling. Then it turns around and it's got an evil fangy face, and it wraps its arms around Todd's neck and starts to strangle him. It actually it jumps on his face like a face hugger, and I think the little tiny Santa mouth is like down onto his nose.
When he first pulled the Santa out of the box, my first reaction was, it's a Pokemon. And I was like, that is not where I expected this movie to go.
But then it becomes, and y'all, please tell me I'm not the only one that saw this, that I'm not the sick, twisted one on the show. It looked like a giant ball gag. That's what they were doing with this guy. I mean, it was the GIMP was happening right there in front of me. Like, Tarantino like owns the print of this too, so he probably like stole that from this for all we know.
My first thought was the facehugger from Alien.
Yeah.
I
got that too.
But then my second thought was the silver ball from Phantasm. And I kept waiting for it to drill into his head and spray blood out. But they went the much cheaper and or more expensive route by having him like fall into the mantle and then fall onto the poker. And shout out to the guy who did the special effects, or one of the guys who did the special effects, who did most of the really grotesque stuff. Screaming Mad George, who is a special effects legend, who Jay knows from Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 and Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, and who I know from Brian Yuzna's other movie, Society, which is insane and disgusting, and also the brilliant looking, if you've never seen it, check out Freaked, Alex Winter's post Bill and Ted movie that looks incredible. Just throwing it out there.
No, I will say, for as cheap as the budget is, the one thing they did not cheap on are the effects. And there's something about practical effects and good camera tricks. And like, I even love the slow-mo of him tripping over the fire poker and all that. And like, he's going to land eye first into that. And yeah, like they spared no expense of the effects in this one and give us the gore right out of the gate. Cause I mean, by the fifth entry, right? Like, you know what you're in for. And we get that within 90 seconds of this.
Yeah. Their blood recipe was solid. So I feel like I'm jumping around a little bit anyway, but with the babysitter coming out of the house and she has that blood all over her face, it looks like the same blood recipe that's used in Carrie when she has all that like pig blood or whatever dumped all over her. But
the K-Ro syrup with the food coloring action. No, it looks great though. It really does. And it's, I mean, yes, there's a reason that Derek is traumatized from all of this. Like, we get it. He comes down and sees that after seeing what else he saw. I mean, good grief. The kid's going through a lot there on December the 12th.
And his gross shirtless stepfather, whose name is probably Todd. I think it's Todd. Or Tom. I don't know. Tom or Todd. It's the same guy. Anyway, he's wearing those blue pajama pants that you used to get back in the late 80s, early 90s that came with the button-up pajama shirt. But the problem with them was they had like two buttons in the front, so they would always just like gap open or randomly open. And the whole time I'm sitting there waiting for little Todd to fall out of his pajamas before he dies.
I mean, I was looking at that going like, I know those as the Jeffrey McDonald murder pajamas, because that's what he wore when he murdered his entire family up in Fort Bragg in the 70s. It looked the same. But that's that same style. You're right. Like, you see somebody with that and it's like, that's not like, no, that's not good. Like, I have on my fuzzy, like, they're quilty looking pajama pants now, but yeah, I've seen those blue ones, and see somebody coming with that. Like, again, there's like the Old Spice Winston beer set that we talked about coming with it, and pinky rings and gold chain through the chest hair and all.
So no murder jammies or pinky rings for Jay and Ron.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe a pinky ring, but no murder jammies.
But no murder jammies.
Because not many people hit the Patreon button on this show. So
I mean, if you guys want us to have pinky rings and murder pajamas to record in, then support us on Anchor FM, because there's a way to donate to the podcast right there. Click on that button for us, please. I've already got one of my dad's pinky rings from that he used to wear. That's a gold 80s nugget ring.
Oh, nice.
So I'm ready to thread a necklace through my impressive chest hair and wander around through.
Look, I don't know about that, but now all I want to do is review Rhinestone with the two of you, just so I can watch Ron react to Freddie Hugo, and what that's all about, and Sylvester Stallone singing country songs, because that's as horrific as this movie gets. I'll tell you that. Just go YouTube Drinkenstein, kids, and just get ready for 2.5 minutes of glory. That's all I'm gonna say. This movie gets us out of his shot though. And I wrote down another thing too, as we start meeting the characters here. Because this is when I had my question, like, I'm not wrong, right? Like Mickey Rooney did like decry Silent Night, Deadly Night, like for existing.
He did. He wrote a letter of protest of the first one stating that the scum who made it should be run out of town for having sullied the sacredness of Christmas. But he changed his mind.
Yeah, clearly. That's hilarious. I didn't think I was wrong about that, but you see him come on and they do. I mean, I caught the Joe Petto line like immediately. I remembered that, but even the first time seeing this, I remember going like, "Oh man, they're not even hiding it." Like it's like I said, there's subtext and there's text, and it's bold, airbrushed in the back of the truck kind of text in this movie. And I have a question, and Ron, you may know this. Was this another thing called the Toy Maker? And then some producer, some studio somewhere said, let's slap Silent Night, Deadly Night on the front of that. I mean, and I don't know who would have thought that, but I just wonder if it wasn't one of those like those Die Hard movies were.
My assumption is that it was meant to be a Silent Night, Deadly Night movie, and that they were trying to do a sort of Halloween 3 thing with it, where you've got this name that people know, and people know Silent Night, Deadly Night. People know Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 for obvious reasons. So they were just like, we can keep using this name and just push some other Christmas-related horror movies out, under that banner, and Blockbuster will buy them.
And Lindsey will rent them with her friends.
Absolutely.
But, I hear people say that all the time. Like, they wanted to do the Halloween 3 thing. I would like to remind everyone that it is only in the last 3 or 4 years that has become something that people think is okay and cool now. That movie was a friggin' bomb. I mean, it wrecked people's lives and careers when it came out. It is never a good idea to take your title and go in the opposite direction of it. Like, we're going to use the title. I remind everyone again of Friday the 13th, The New Beginning. Like, that is not a good example. Even though I think Pino in this and Tommy in that movie are distantly related. Convince me otherwise, because they act the same. But I mean, really, that is never a good idea to do. No matter what your idea is. Like, it would be different if the series had been set up that way. And I'm not some purist that says like they have to keep following the continuing through line, because oh my goodness, the story of Ricky is unbelievable in this. But that just blows my mind that someone said like, yeah, we need to go in a new direction with the Silent Night, Deadly Night series. Got it.
Well, the same guy who did 3 and 4 executive produced this one, so he had the rights to the name, and he was going to milk that name until it was dust on the ground.
I mean, yeah,
because presumably he had to buy the rights from the original rights holders, and probably paid for them.
Yeah, I mean, this was the last one they did for almost 20 years, because they didn't touch this again until Malcolm McDowell and Donald Logue came along, in the 2000s to do that new one, and they didn't reverence this at all. But Killer Toys. I feel like I've seen that motif done a lot or whatever, but I have to say, like, the uniqueness of these killer toys is pretty cool. And they play around with who's actually making the killer toys. And that's my question for y'all. Is Joe Petto actually making the evil killer toys, or is Pino doing it like on the sly?
I think it's Pino doing it, because he's the one who seems to be pushing them onto people. Like at the store where Derek is there, he brings out Larry the Larva, and he's like, here, take this, kid. Only for Larry the Larva to end up killing some random guy who runs a hotel or something later on.
Landlord. Yeah.
Well, they kind of push that it's coming from Petto's shop, but they muddy who is actually distributing them. But then they also set up Noah as being a Ricky-type Christmas stalker, which is another nice bit of misdirect, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of red herrings in this for you to chase.
Yeah.
If you're want to chase those.
I guess I just assumed that Petto was the one making them, but that is an interesting question.
But Pino was the one who was flipping the switch to evil?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, because all the toys have like, now don't hit the evil switch, son, fake son. That I was
because they have that story about Petto's pregnant wife dying.
Right.
And so then he made Pinot. So he was clearly dabbling in the, I don't know. I won't
Unholy
say
arts.
the occult, but yeah. Basically,
Well, I mean,
he was,
there is like force lightning sort of driving these things around, and I had to like, when did Geppetto learn the dark side? To be able to make that work.
He learned it from Charles Lee Ray. Come on.
Yes. Somewhere, Dumbala, give me the power, I beg of thee, or whatever is going on in the back. Ooga booga is happening in the background of that. But the babysitter even drops the line like, nobody buys anything from Pettas anymore. And just the way she says it is like, probably because of the title. Like, even in the 90s, people are like, not a good way to go, Joe. Joe's Toy Store would be better.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think you nailed it in the plot summary though too, Ron. Like Mom, Sarah goes like some gestalt therapy on this poor kid. Like, friggin' talk, just loses her shit at him at the breakfast table.
I mean, that's fair. And he's also watching Rambo, the animated series. So I don't know how they got the rights to that, but.
Oh man, that didn't cost anything. That bombed worse than this did. They probably didn't even ask, like, truly, like, I don't even think this was like a Leprechaun thing where like there were actual Lucky Charms on the set at one time. I don't think nobody even looked in clearances. There's no way. Like, you can't even convince me that there were.
And then she has that breakfast table moment where she's, super nice to him. I made everything just the way you like it. Nothing's touching. And I was like, oh, he's one of those kids. You're definitely an only child. What a weird kid. I don't want my toast to touch my other piece of toast.
That is a great pickup. I didn't even catch that, Leslie. That's awesome.
No, I was an only child and I wasn't like that. Like you had to keep your like wet food separate from your dry food, but that's normal. You don't want your dry food to get like.
You know what? Even I can get behind that. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, like in school when we grew up, y'all, like the trays were like, it was like prison trays. Like they were cordoned off. Like
I think
really
they're still
mixed.
like prison trays.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want my corn to get on my rectangle pizza,
Yeah, they still are divided prison trays. That's
right.
That's
by the way, talk about like a carb load lunch. By the way, here's some corn and pizza, kid. Now go learn geography.
Drink your chocolate milk.
They don't do that anymore, Jay.
I was going to say, you work in education, Ron. You know more about this than I do now. But you said chocolate milk. Like we had like pink lemonade. That was how my school rolled.
Whoa, fancy, Jay. Pinky up.
I know, right? Yeah.
We only got chocolate milk on Fridays.
Right? Yeah, with fish. That was how mine went. So. For the 8 Catholics in Florence, Alabama. But,
I was like, yeah, there are no. Yeah, the 5 Catholic kids are really going to appreciate that.
I'm sure they did somewhere along the way. Well, they were the town leadership. But anyway, I digress. I do love our killer toy selection here, though, and we've already mentioned the Larry the Larvae, the glowworm of death is what I call it, in the car, no less. And I got to say, like, I thought that death was great. Like the fake head that it crawls out of and all that. That was some Halloween free shit.
Awesome. That, honestly, I was not expecting that. I was expecting him to accidentally wreck the car because this thing was freaking him out. I was definitely not expecting it to actually cause the death. And then the crawl through.
Yeah.
That was mint. That was really, really cool.
That's the magic of Screaming Mad George. I mean, his first credited special effects was on Big Trouble in Little China. And they followed it up with Predator, then Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Then he did 4, and if you haven't seen Arena, it's a great like fight movie with some big creepy aliens. He did all those creepy aliens. He did the body horror movie Society, Bride of Reanimator, Silent Night, Deadly Night 4. So we're gonna have to watch it, or at least I am. 5, Freaked, Tales from the Hood.
Tales from the Hood is awesome, by the way. That's worth doing. So that
and he did Beyond Reanimator, which has some crazy stuff in it, and he also directed The Guyver, which is one of my favorite martial arts movies.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know you ever got into doing the directing part of things. I just know his effects work. But no, the effects on this are great, and we get that late model '80s Ford, like the car crash in that. that was like some A-Team shit. Like the explosion of that was really good. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, man, you know what? For a cheap ass movie, like they kind of winning me over with the goof effects here, and everything.
Half the money went to Mickey Rooney, the other half went to blowing up that car and creating rubber heads for Screaming Mad George.
Yeah, that was definitely a one take too. Like they're like, you better friggin' get this right because we cannot blow up another Cutlass. Like this is all we got. You better get. But I mean, that's like some Lethal Weapon explosion stuff.
It was a huge fireball. That was really impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's really, really done. I like that. You mentioned Noah being the creepy stalker, and I had misremembered. I thought like he was the other like brother of Pino, like he was the first one or whatever that Pedo made, and he threw him out, and that he was coming back for revenge. And when that turned out to not be, I was like, oh dang, he's just Derek's dad or whatever. Which that's another story in and of itself. But I'm watching this going like, how much cooler would it be if it was like the warring children of Joe Pedo trying to I'll out evil you. Like,
and at some point, like Ricky pulls off his face and he's horribly scarred.
Yes. Yeah. Why couldn't we have done that? Like I don't know. I feel like Noah being like knocking up his teenage girlfriend and then running off to the army doesn't make him redeemable in any way.
I think if they'd done the other thing, they would have had to pay like $50,000 more, and the executive producer was like, "No, there's absolutely no way. I was able to get this. Yeah. I was able to get this much from my dentist and my doctor and my podiatrist, and we're not. I can't milk them for any more money."
I mean, it's probably one of those like post Wall Street slush fund things, like dump off my junk bonds into this, so I get the tax write off for it. Yeah, Noah is the weirdest Santa ever, only to be done by Pino and his like Snoopy self, and the way he snoops through that house though, like that is some. I mean, you just knew he was creepy anyway, but like when he starts messing with people's like underwear drawers and shit like that, like you just know, like okay, yeah, we're in dark times.
One thing I didn't notice the first time I saw the movie, and I noticed on the second watching for this recording, is that if you watch Pino, he moves very puppety.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something.
He moves very much like a toy or a doll, almost.
Oh wow! I didn't pick up on that.
It's especially noticeable when he's like fleeing from the house after getting caught in the closet.
That explains so much, because I just was like, why is that guy running like that? He just looks, I was like, maybe he's trying to, like, it's a performance thing. But wow, he put a lot of thought into that. Then that's actually impressive that our great character there, Tracy Frame, decided to do something with that.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of clues other than that, I mean, throughout the movie to lead you into, oh, he's a toy or robot or doll or whatever you want to call him. And I think for a low budget film, I will throw this out there as the acting was way better than I think most low budget, especially low budget horror flicks, pull in. And, case in point was Pino's performance. I mean, there are a few stumbles here and there that I think, weren't like the greatest acting moments, but overall I did not find any of the acting to be off-putting.
I have to say, like, it's at least like that era of Lifetime, ABC movie of the week special kind of stuff, like Mother May I Sleep with Danger level. It's at least that good.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because the guy who plays Pino, Brian Brimmer, actually is still working to this day, and it's like is doing some pretty like mainstream. He's been in like Tyler Perry stuff. He's been in like he was in the Walking Dead video game. He's been in some like actual legitimate stuff as like just like a random character actor. So, it didn't kill his career like we were talking about. And he also followed this up with the Pumpkinhead, or he was in Pumpkinhead before this, and he was in Society before this, and he's got a pretty major role in Society, and he's also pretty good in that.
That's where I knew the face from, Pumpkinhead. I knew it. Oh, thank you. I didn't look that up, but now I'm like, I know this guy. Pumpkinhead. Yes, you've completed the circle, Ron. Yes, Pumpkinhead. Oh, if only he had been in Pumpkinhead 2 Blood Wings, I would even have more respect for him.
I know, right?
That has Soleil Moon Frye in it.
You can only do so much.
I mean, right? So, but that one does have Lance Henriksen in it, though, we should say, the original Pumpkinhead. So
I will say there was one moment after I had kind of pegged Pinot as a doll or an android, and I had this thought in my head, which was, oh man, what if they're all toys? Like going down the Twilight Zone road.
Ooh.
And I got really excited for a second. I was like, oh, that would be the best twist. And then it didn't happen, but
yeah, that's getting it. We're getting into Halloween 3 territory there.
Yeah, well, that would have been awesome, though. Yeah, I'm with you, Liz. That would have been cool. So
I got my hopes up a few too many times watching this movie.
yeah, don't do it in this movie. Like, no doubt. Like, it's I do get a kick out of like the deadly roller skates from hell kill like Derek's like loudmouth annoying friend. Anyone who knows anything about like being on roller skates to get out of control, and I can speak to attest to this, that if you're near grass, that's where you ditch. Like you go in the grass and you're done. That kid went into the street. I'm like, well, you're just asking for it now, kid. Like you're just waiting to be Marty McFly at that point.
This is a you problem now.
Yeah.
But I will say that whoever did that skating did a great job with like all the backward skating and like doing spins and loops and stuff.
Yeah, no, yeah, like I say, I mean, they really went all out with all the like the kills. But I do love that they hedged their bets. Like somewhere in a room, they're like, we got to show the kid in the hospital. Like the kid can't die. Like we can't do that. Like we do all this other heinous shit. We can't do that. Spielberg regrets killing that kid in Jaws. We can't be that. Like I'm sure that was the conversation they had. So.
Well, and was there? Maybe I missed. Was there some? I feel like there was some reference to the toys all being connected because the rollerblades were affected when Derek was beating the Santa Pokemon thing.
Yeah, I think they like the energy that whatever that blue lightning energy magic shit is, whatever, like when it gets disturbed, it turns on the next piece of it so that it can maximum overdrive whatever's near you or whatever.
It's the Force, Jay.
There we go. Yes.
The Force flows through all these evil toys.
It flows, it binds us and connects us and murders all the children at once, Luke. So,
it's very efficient.
I mean, it is. But I like that, though. I mean, I got a kick out of that one, too. And then when they do the Big Days of Our Lives reveal that Derek is Noah's kid, that is funny. Because, like, you bone in the parking lot and then, oh, by the way, he is my son, isn't he? Yes. I mean,
and your husband's is dead for how long? 2 weeks? Okay, cool.
I mean, but look, Todd, we already established Todd was like that. She flat out said it, like he had a good job in insurance. Like that was a marriage of good.
Yeah, it was worth putting up for.
That was not the first time Sarah stepped out on him. Let's just be straight. Okay.
Yeah, it was worth.
Her.
It was worth putting up with the constant vodka sweat.
Oh God.
Yes. Vodka and pot roast.
Yeah, that's the smell of that's the smell of the cheap gravy packet that you throw in to the crock pot.
Yes. Oh no, she ain't crock pot that, man. She's microwaving that one of those big industrial size.
Oh yeah.
The size of your television.
Yeah.
Back in those.
Throw it on the TV tray.
Exactly. So you can watch the game. Got 50 on the Bears, damn it. So, but I love it that we have dueling love scenes going on, though. You have them in the parking lot, and then you got the boyfriend and the babysitter at the house, right? Because that's, of course, was good. And I love how she's like, were all these toys here when we started making out? And he's like, yeah, sure, whatever, as a typical guy. And like the toys are like lurching around. It's almost like they're trying to get a better view at one point. I got a real kick out of that because, again, I got Puppet Master vibes off of that so big, Ron. Like,
between those, between the toys moving to watch creepily and the butt play hand that kept skulking around that dude's taint.
And he enjoyed it very much.
He was into it.
The actor, like, there's this long, it's 30 seconds on his face. And can you imagine being the director going like, now here's what's happening. I need you to just go with it. And that guy that was coming from a place of experience. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
I believe that place of experience is
the
called
look
the
on the
prostate.
poor actress. Yeah. Well, the guy did look like he was 35, so.
Yeah, he's been around the block a few times. He's done some time on the casting couch. Probably next to Todd. Before Todd lost his hair.
Probably true.
They were like, you hire one of us, or no, both of us, or neither of us.
Right.
We're a package deal.
Yes, we're a package deal in your piece of smut. But no, I love how the toys go out for blood, though, man, and they get it. Like, they just start shooting up the house and all this stuff. I'm like, but that was always the thing. Like, when things would go evil, like, what if your G.I. Joe toys became evil all of a sudden? Would the rockets suddenly actually work like real rockets? And the answer is yes. And I got a real charge out of that. I thought that was well done. It was funny. Only punctuated by drunk Mickey Rooney running in the room. And I don't mean like the character. He looked like he was hammered. Running in the room and throwing that Santa bag over that kid to kidnap him. That was a big, precious moment for me. I got a real laugh out of that.
Mickey Rooney throughout this movie is, I don't know if he's drunk or just giving it his 100% because he's just rampaging through this movie like at the drop of a hat. It's pretty fun.
I just didn't picture him, or at least that character, as a Jack Daniels kind of guy. I don't know what I pictured him, but when he pulled out that bottle of Jack, I was like, okay. I guess that's a character choice, but not one I was expecting. Yeah. I'm not sure what else he would have been drinking, though.
I mean, yeah, I kind of thought he would be. I didn't think he would be a beer guy because he didn't have the face for it, right? But definitely hitting like the harder liquor, like maybe rum or something. I don't know, but there was something going on there with him that
or maybe like, you know what? I'm thinking maybe something cheaper. Jack is too name brand. Like, let's give him some Canadian LTD or something like bottom shelf.
Yeah, George Dickel.
I feel like No, I feel like I could see him. That's definitely one of the things. So going back to the toy moment where they were all shooting, getting real shoot 'em uppy.
Yes.
And the babysitter gets pegged in the chest with that cannon.
Yeah.
And I was like, I thought she was dead. And then she just kept screaming and moving. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. And then I had to remind myself that it still was just a toy. And it probably didn't, really embed itself too badly.
Yeah, it's like a little BB or something, but not even that strong. It didn't have enough of a spring. But that's what I say. Like, that's what made the moment great is when all those toys came to life and started actually shooting projectiles at you. It's just they weren't damaging enough. The one though that like got the saw blades going and became like, talk about something out of Phantasm that cut the Achilles on that kid and like cut his face off. Like the boyfriend, like he got murdered real good.
Well, I thought the babysitter was done for too because that bitey mouthy thing was.
Okay, that was uncomfortable because that went straight into her crotch.
It got it got her leg. I don't know.
Yeah, it got on the thigh, but the angle was like it was going straight
I had to go back and rewatch that section because I guess wasn't paying that close of attention the first time around. And I thought to myself, did that thing go straight for the crotch? And so I, did the back 30 seconds and I was like, okay, no, it's on the leg, but it didn't look like that when I saw it.
I feel like there was a lot of stuff in this movie that was aiming for the crotch that they ended up audibling. away from it, specifically with her, and of course with Tidy Whitey's. I figured there was a lot of like, we can't afford to film crotch trauma, so
Yeah, that's fair.
we got to shoot around this guy's taint getting destroyed.
You got to wonder if like the actress is like, look, I'll do a lot of things, but I am not going to have evil cunnilingus. Like that is not happening. Like, no. So like, we'll just get the one shot and then we'll make sure it bites down on her thigh, y'all. So, but it was just chomping her like slowly. Like it was just, it was really doing damage to her, which was funny, but no, yeah, I thought the hand, like the evil hands that were groping her, and then like she would move it on his back, and the hand would go like, "Okay, I'm here now," I'll just do that. I mean, it's there. I mean, there's some really unintentional humor there, or maybe it's intentional. I can't imagine they were making that seriously. They had to know that was going to be funny.
I feel like it had to be intentional because Screaming Mad George is a guy who loves to walk that line between gross and funny. Yeah, and I feel like he had a lot of input into the special effects on this and to how these scenes were staged.
But I'm with you, Lindsay. I thought the babysitter was done for. I knew the boyfriend was dead because of the Phantasm toy, like I said, but I thought the babysitter was dead. But she's fine. She just walks out, but she's beat to hell, but she's bloody and pulpy, but she's fine. So
yep.
I thought we'd get more of a body count.
I don't know how she didn't die. I don't know. I guess they realized we needed to have someone explain what's going on. So we'll just dump some corn syrup on this girl and send her out.
Because there's no way anybody can figure it out after, again, drunk Mickey Rooney comes back. And then we get the big climax, though. The Pinocchio story and all that stuff. When he strips off, y'all, I lost my shit. I laughed so friggin' hard at the plastic doll man.
I mean, well, almost anything line when he was like, pedo can make anything, and then he looks down at his own empty crotch and says, well, almost anything.
And my question is like,
and then
why
starts
leave that
humping
off?
his mom, his want-to-be mom.
Right? Like, someone explained to me like what that was all about, because he looked a lot like Eminem in that moment too, which would explain a lot of it. But like, what is Pino's deal? Like, I want you to be my mother, but I also want to sleep with you. Like, did Pinocchio have an edible?
I was just gonna say, someone who made this film had some seriously fucked up Oedipal complexes going on.
Really? Or they just read that like in class and then decided,
oh, that could be it. And they were like, yeah, this would be a great
twist.
I just feel like the producer was like, no, this hasn't been repulsive enough. We got to throw in some attempted Kindle molestation.
It is kid doll. I mean, it's bad. But the boy, then Noah and Sarah sure curb stomp him into nothing, which is I did enjoy the way that they dispatch him and cut him to pieces, because again, good effects.
Yeah,
I feel like they missed out by not having Sarah step on Pino's genital bump. It just really like make this extra repulsive.
Should have hit him with the axe in the bump.
Yeah,
that would have been.
And then yell something like, "You got some wood now, chop."
Well, Noah tried to punch him in the face, and all I could think was like, "You can't punch a doll, idiot! Like, what are you doing? He's hard plastic. What do you think that's going to do to your?"
Yeah,
Noah was special. He was a special.
Noah not exactly known for the brain cells.
And Noah also almost got killed by a toy airplane earlier.
And a toy water pistol.
And the water pistol, yeah.
Those were great, though. I
guess the standards for the Army were much lower back then, because this guy, I mean, I don't see how this guy got out of, like, tying his shoes class.
I mean, this was the Cold War was over. This was before global war on terrorism. It was relatively time of peace. Like, I think we had cut a lot of things back in the 90s at that point. It was a time when we could do that kind of thing. But or at least we just assumed that's how you got in. You ran away from your responsibilities and joined the Army so it would teach you responsibilities. That's what the trope was.
Yeah, and you leave your pregnant girlfriend behind.
Right.
And you pretend like you don't know she was pregnant when you left.
Right. Yeah, you ask the question that you know the answer to. Which, when again, that was a good Days of Our Lives kind of moment, though. Like, you knew that was coming, you know.
You find the little you find the little stick in the garbage can. You're like, I got to go out and get some cigarettes, honey. And then you never return.
And then you get on the bus, and the next thing you know, you're in Camp Lejeune.
Yeah, then you're like, West Germany sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Can you put me in Soviet Russia? Let's just do this thing.
I'll just go all the way up to Siberia for this, but I'll come back someday. And when I come back, I'm going to blow all my money buying evil toys because I'm convinced of this wild conspiracy theory. Because that's what the army has taught me. It's wild, but what I love is that they do leave us with that hanger ending, as every good cheap horror movie is supposed to, right? Something else evil should come to life, and I really wanted, like, right as they got to the door, for the door to slam shut and the whole house to be just rigged up with evil shit to come and kill them, and that's where it ends. Like, that would have been dark and messed up, and that's where this movie deserved to go. And then you have Clint Howard in a second cameo walk by and just sort of wave, you know, because that lets you know Ricky's still involved.
But instead, we got Derek saying, "It's just a toy." Like, this kid hasn't been shitting his pants the entire movie.
Exactly. It's never just a toy.
Now, to be fair, he was probably doing that before Todd was killed.
That's fair.
True. Because this kid does not... I'm going to disagree with you, Jay. This kid is, like, not the brightest light. And this kid is also...
He doesn't know how to close a door. We figured that out in the first
Yeah,
scene.
and he's awful dead behind the eyes, to me.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm a little harsh on the kid from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, but you know.
I mean, it's not the greatest child acting. I didn't think it was that bad, but you know, he definitely has boundary issues, as we've well established.
Well, you know what's funny is after he does this movie, he does the Charles Band version of this movie, Demonic Toys. So he clearly had 3 roles he could get. Young Bill as Preston Esquire and kid being attacked by toys.
I think there were a couple crossover actors between this and Demonic Toys. I don't know who the other ones were.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me given how much Charles Band supported Brian Yuzna's career, and Brian Yuzna produced this bad boy. So
yeah, there's definitely, like, they're all working in the same, like, it's just one, like, set to the next. Like, clearly, you know, it's like, it was like the old days of, you know, NBC or whatever. You did a Law and Order, you did a CSI, and then you go shoot, like, whatever lousy movie they had going on the side. Universal was shooting. You do a spot on an X-Men movie.
They just all got together and rented the strip mall to film their various movies in.
Exactly. Probably the same strip mall that Chuck Norris drove a truck through in Invasion USA.
No, that was in Florida. This was clearly Los Angeles or, you know, Glendale.
Yeah, right. Which nowadays would be passed off as Northern Georgia, but anyway.
And with that reference to filmmaking in Georgia, which, funnily enough, is where is where Pino lives now. He lives in Georgia, and he has a band apparently in Atlanta. I don't know if they're called the Creepy Sex Robots or not, but they should be. Anyway,
That'd be a great name for a band.
The Creepy Sex Robots,
especially like an indie folk band.
Yeah,
right. They should play like acoustic. Yes,
and they do that clap hay.
Lots of ukulele.
Yeah.
Yes.
Heavily in the wash tub.
Throw some spoons in every now and then, you know?
I mean, spoon solo for the win.
Oh, and on that note, and on that digression, I think we're all ready to get to the point where we talk about our final thoughts, recommendations, and our popcorn ratings. Now, we all know what the popcorn ratings are, but if you're a first-time listener, number 1, I'm sorry. And number 2, we rate the movie on a scale of popcorns from small to extra large obviously being the best. We can throw any kind of modifier in there we want, like extra butter, extra salt, dropped on the floor, stepped on by a weird sex robot with no genitals, what have you. But to get to our final thoughts, Jay, what do you have to say about Silent Night, Deadly Night 5, The Toy Maker?
That I haven't already said. Oh man, look. If you're at this point and you watch this, like, you know what you're getting. Like, if you go to a JV sporting event, all right, because you're going to support your kid or one of your friends' kids or whatever, you kind of know what you're there for. You're not going to watch the national championship game or anything like that. And you're just there to kind of like just soak it in and just to watch the train wreck happen because it's going to be there. Like, somebody's going to lose their mind. It's going to be weird. Somebody's going to do something really awesome that's out of nowhere. And you're like, I didn't expect that. Wow, that looks competent. And then there's going to be people doing stupid things on the side that you just have no idea how it happens. And that's this movie. I mean, that is this movie. For popcorn ratings, it's definitely small popcorn. But let me explain to you, like, it's the good kind of small popcorn. If you go to that sporting event and you have zero intention of eating anything, like, I'm not eating this garbage. There's no way. But you walk by the concession stand once or twice and you're like, that smells really good. You know what? It's only 50 cents for that small bag. And you throw out kind of a couple of the burnt kernels and you get to like those 5 or 6 in the middle, like the perfect pop, perfect amount of that, concession stand butter fry thing on it. And it's just enough to go like, you know what? That was worth the trip. It's not a lot. I didn't invest a whole lot into it. I didn't have a lot of expectations for it. And it delivered on every one of those things. So I'll give it a small popcorn, but in like a good and fun kind of way.
All right. Sounds great. And for your reference, Jay, when I worked at a concession stand, we used both real butter and butter-flavored oil. So
there you go.
And now, Lindsay, on that note, what are your thoughts about Mickey Rooney's greatest movie?
Jay, I love your, oh, wow, that was actually competent. Or whatever what you just said. I mean, like I said, I went into this movie with the bar set pretty low. I'm going to give it, so I don't know if this is technically better or worse than what Jay gave it. I am just going to give it like a plain medium popcorn. Nothing.
Totally
just
fair.
like, yeah, you just go in, there's barely any butter on it, or you have like the little, it's like the end of the popcorn, they're scraping the bottom of the popcorn thing and then they just give you a little extra because they had it. So now you have a medium instead of a small. That is because honestly, I mean, the movie's not great, but I went into it thinking it'd be way worse. So
Yeah.
honestly, I was, and it went by fast. It was a short movie, but I feel like the last few movies that I've watched, I really felt the length of them. And this one, it went by pretty quickly for me. So I appreciated that. So there was always something going on. So that's me, just a plain ass medium popcorn.
And Lindsay, I will join you in that medium popcorn, and I will also join you in its relative plainness. I think I like the movie a little bit more than you did, but I appreciate things that are weird and crazy and dumb, and I appreciate movies that just are like, this is our stupid premise. We're just going to do it as well as we can. And, the fact that we don't have any money is not going to stop us from paying like an actual special effects genius to show up and do his thing for like the 3 scenes we can afford him for. So I would definitely give it a
Wait a minute, are you talking about the movie or the premise of this podcast, man? I could be either or.
But yeah, I would give it a medium popcorn. And on that note, we'll go ahead and wrap up the show. You can follow the show's social media at FilmstripPod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. There you will find announcements about upcoming shows and a link to our Letterboxd page, which contains our entire list of reviews. Go to filmstrippodcast.com to check out our Anchor.fm distribution site. Or you can find us on your podcast platform of choice, Apple, Spotify, Google, etc. If podcasts are there, we'll be there too. Please share the show, and if you like, leave us a positive review as it helps other people find the podcast. You can find me at Den of Geek. I will be picking up the latest season of Snowpiercer, and probably having a pretty good time with that because it's Sean Bean doing Sean Bean things and David Diggs doing David Diggs things, and it's a lot of fun. So check me out at Den of Geek. For Jay and Lindsay, I'm Ron. Thank you for listening to Film Strip.
Thank you for listening to Film Strip. You can find more episodes on our website, filmstrippodcast.com. The Film Strip theme music is produced and performed by Frozen Lake 121. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504, C2, Title 17.